crazy how, like, hours ago, I was sat up thinking I'm just going to get sent home with some medication because I had a stomach bug, and then it turned out to be that. Yeah, they turned around to me when they came to the ward. It was like, if we hadn't done your surgery, with the extent of the state your insides were in, you probably would have had about 12 hours and the outcome would have been a lot different. I'm Chloe, I'm 26 from Littleborough in the UK, and I got diagnosed in early February 2024 with stage 3 colon cancer. I used to work in a nursery. I love working with children. I've got a daughter myself, so I've always enjoyed working with them and just watching them learn and grow and be able to help them in that aspect of things. I just thought I had an upset tummy for a little bit, but then symptoms started getting a bit more, so I was losing weight, but because I was swollen at the same time, they weren't noticing the weight loss as much. I had no appetite, I was so tired all the time, but they put it down to my anemia because I'm anemic, and just generally not well. Like, I could tell in myself that I wasn't well. So throughout the full of December, I was at the GP's every week. They were doing blood tests, they were doing stool samples, urine samples, and everything was just coming back normal. Like, my blood levels were a little bit elevated, that I had an infection of some sort, but they just treated it as gastroenteritis. And then late December, I started vomiting at home, and I live with my grandparent, and she was like, something's not right, like, you don't look well, it's been going on far too long, we're going back to the doctors. So she took me to the doctors. They did another urine sample and blood test, and the nurse who did it, she was like, something's not right, your ketones are high and you just look really, really unwell, and I'm quite worried. So from there, she sent me to the local infirmary at Rochdale, who did more blood tests. Same, said something's not right, your ketones are high in your urine. So they put me on a paracetamol drip and give me some fluids to hydrate me because I was dehydrated. And then they turned around to me and said, ideally you need a scan on your stomach, because obviously something's not right somewhere, but we're too busy. We're going to treat it as gastroenteritis. If you get worse, go to your local accident and emergency department. So went home. For the 7th, 8th time, you have a stomach bug, it'll clear itself, that's fine. So I went on as if I just had a stomach bug, but I knew something wasn't right. Like, for 1 second, my mind never went to cancer. I thought maybe I had, I don't know, something, a worse stomach bug maybe, that just needed some treatment. So fast forward about 3 days later, I was in work, and my mum's actually my boss in work, so she was like, no, you're not right, you can't be around the children. I'm getting your nan to pick you up and she's going to take you to the hospital. So I got to the hospital, thought, oh, I'll just be here a couple of hours, they'll put me on some more meds, I'll be fine. And then got there, put a drip in my arm to get me hydrated because again I was dehydrated. And then I finally saw a doctor after about 2 or 3 hours of waiting in the waiting room. She felt my stomach and everything, and she basically turned around and said, it's not gastroenteritis, 100% it's not gastroenteritis. She went, we're going to do a CT scan to obviously rule things out. So I was like, well, what do you think it is then if it's not gastroenteritis? She went, as a doctor, my mind is going, I've ruled everything out, my mind is going to cancer. And I kind of just sat there, and at the time my mum came, like, switched over with my nan, so I just looked at my mum and I was like, it can't be, I'm too young to have cancer, especially the type that they're suggesting. So I got myself in a fit of panic, and my mum was like, calm down, we won't know for definite until your scans are back, and if it is, we'll deal with it. So they took me for this CT scan, I waited about half an hour for the results, and then she came back and she said, you've got a mass in your large bowel, and you've got a couple of perforations as well that we need to get you into surgery like now. So I was getting prepped for surgery, and then I was told my kidneys ended up starting to fail, my liver was starting to fail, I had sepsis all in my stomach because of the perforations all in my bowel. They took me into the surgery, and I just remember them saying, there's a chance you could wake up with a stoma bag. At this point, I knew of stoma bags and what they were, but I'd never really known much about them, so I was like, okay. But in my head, I'd convinced myself that no, it's fine, they're taking me to surgery, I'll wake up, won't need the stoma bag. They also told me that they could do it keyhole, so I won't need, like, obviously open surgery. So I just remember that thought being in my head before I got put to sleep. And then next thing I know, I'm waking up in recovery, and I just felt my stomach, and I could feel the stoma bag, and I could feel the dressing, and I just remember my body kind of just went numb. It felt like an out-of-body experience. I was on my own in this recovery room, seeing everything for the first time, and just, it's crazy how, like, hours ago, I was sat up thinking I'm just going to get sent home with some medication because I had a stomach bug, and then it turned out to be that. Yeah, they turned around to me when they came to the ward. It was like, if we hadn't done your surgery, with the extent of the state you're in Salisbury, you probably would have had about 12 hours and the outcome would have been a lot different. I didn't actually find out that it was stage 3 cancer until about 2 weeks after the surgery, because obviously they had to send off everything for testing. So there was a lot of, in my head by this point, I'd gathered that it was cancer, so to speak, but to the extent of what it was, I was unaware. So it was a bit of a shock, obviously, to hear at 25 years old at the time that you've got stage 3 colon cancer, when obviously the stigma is around that. It's the older age that get it. And I was like, I'm 26, I'm 25, how's that happened to me? I had no bowel issues in the past, I had nothing, like, absolutely fine. And obviously it spread to my lymph nodes and stuff, so they had to remove loads of lymph nodes. And then they said there was a large amount of polyps lining my bowel when they did the surgery. So they sent them off for some testing, and it came back that I have a rare genetic disorder called the FAP gene, which apparently, if it's known about, they can monitor it and keep an eye on it and never happen. But because they'd never known about this gene, they'd all clumped together and made a big tumour in my bowel, which wasn't fun. I think because I'd kind of prepared myself for the worst, it didn't hit me as hard when I had the phone call, obviously, to give me the results. I think when it started hitting home that the numbness has kind of worn off and reality was hitting, I think was when I had my first meeting with the surgeon, obviously to discuss my treatment plan and stuff, and then that's when it was a bit like, oh, okay, this is real. Like, we're gonna tackle it head on now and come out the other end. And they were hopeful that obviously it was a treatment that I was, what's the word for it? They said it was treatable, it wasn't kind of prolonging, like it was something that I was going to come out the other end of. And yeah, I think that's when it started to feel very real, was when I got the phone call, and then I had the meeting, and then things kind of moved very fast from there, and it was like, oh, okay, this is real. They never offered a colonoscopy. They did say they've done stool samples, and if anything was to show up, it'd be shown in the stool sample, which they did one, and apparently that came back clear. So to me, if that was clear, why wasn't a colonoscopy offered if I was still presenting unwell with these symptoms after 7 or 8 weeks? So now it's really important to me that I just get the message out there to people, especially the younger people, that don't be like nervous or embarrassed to go to your doctor about any symptoms that you're having and think, oh, I'm fine, I'm not old enough, because it just goes to show with my case that age, it doesn't pick an age, it just gets whoever it wants to get. And it's kind of sad really that if it's going to pick you, it's going to pick you kind of thing. But yeah, it's really important, just don't be embarrassed about it, just go and get it done and keep pushing for tests to be done really if you're not feeling right and you know something's wrong. When they mentioned it before the surgery, they had to mark it on my stomach just in case, well, if I did wake up with the stoma, they had to mark it so they know where it'd be. But again, I'd kind of kidded myself in my head that it's fine, I'm not going to have one. So to wake up and see it and feel it, I think initially I obviously noticed it and I felt distraught. Like, I was like, how can it change so quick? I've gone from having I say normal, but obviously it's still normal, don't get me wrong, but my normal had just changed in hours. So not only did I have to get my head around the fact that I've just underwent this surgery, I had to get my head around that I've now got a stoma. And as much as I hated it at the time, I had to almost tell myself that if I hadn't have had the stoma, there is a chance that I couldn't be here now. So there are many days still where I absolutely hate it, and I just keep thinking back of the old me, so to speak, and how life was before the surgery and the diagnosis and how I looked. But now, on the other hand, I'm very grateful for the fact that I do have it, because it's given me the opportunity to carry on making memories and being here and helping to break the stigma and raise awareness around stomas and cancer.
My bag everywhere I go. Every single place I go. You know, it's my pet. Pet Louie.
It's a very up and down journey. There's days where I don't even realise it's there. Like, I completely forget about it and I can go on. And then there's other days where I'm like, oh, I've got this bag on my stomach and I just need to deal with it. And it can be quite daunting because you look down and your insides are on your outside and it's like, this is a surreal thing to see. Like, it's quite surreal, but it's definitely a journey, and I don't think I'm quite there on it yet, but it's getting there. They said that I needed 4 rounds of chemotherapy, and I think I had, so the way it worked was I started 1 week, I had a 2.5 hour session on the drip, and then I'd come home and I'd have a week of chemo tablets and then a week off, and then it'd start again for, I think, 3 months I ended up having chemo for. Yeah, 3 months of chemo, and they were hopeful that that would be it, but they did say obviously I could need possible radiation afterwards just to kind of blast anything. But when they did my scan after the chemo, they were happy that the chemo had done its job and got rid of any remaining cells. So I think I got told I was in remission in June 2024, so it's been nearly a year. It was really nice to hear them words after all that time and being able to ring the bell and kind of signify that the treatment had finished. But then there's also, I just remember thinking in my head, but what if they've missed something, or what if there was a lot of what ifs, and it took me quite a while to kind of stop thinking them what ifs. But it's quite good because I get blood tests done every 4 months and I have my scans every 6 months, and I think that put my mind at rest a lot, knowing that I am constantly getting checked now. I think in a way I'm kind of more, in some situations, more easygoing. Like, some things that I wouldn't have done before the diagnosis because I'd have been scared. Like, for instance, went on holiday with my friend and she wanted to go paragliding, and on boats and all this. And I was like, yeah, why not? Like, let's do it. I've had my second chance now to make the most of it. I'm just gonna do everything because I can. But the Chloe before would never, never have got on a boat, never have gone paragliding. I would have been too scared. But now I'm just like, why not? Like, you've had your second chance. That's the way I see it. Like, the surgery was my second chance. I've got to make the most of it and do everything I want to do, basically. So I'm going to do it. The mental health side has been very up and down. It's been a yo-yo. There's been days where I've felt great and I've kind of forgotten about it all, but then there's also days where I wake up and the reality obviously hits that I went through all of that and how different it could have. I think that plays a big part of my mind of how different it could have been if I hadn't have gone to the hospital that time and I hadn't have listened to my mum and just gone when she told me. I have had to have some counselling because of it all, and that's helping to deal with it and understand my emotions around it a lot better. It's left me with quite a bit of PTSD and anxiety around hospitals now, and when I have to go in for my tests and stuff, it's a lot. There's a lot of anxiety around it, but I find it helps speaking to my loved ones and my family and just not being afraid to speak how I'm feeling about it and knowing that I won't get judged for feeling the way I'm feeling. I think that's a big thing. If you're feeling sad, just speak about it or have a little cry and rant to yourself about it, but just get them feelings out. It's not a bad thing to feel sad. Don't be embarrassed. Like, the big thing for me at first, before I was going to the doctors, was just not being listened to. So I think just be persistent, just keep pushing, just keep going, don't be embarrassed, and just go, get the help, accept the help, and keep pushing if they don't give it you. And whatever happens, the plus side is that you're still going to be here. You're going to be able to carry on living life and making memories and proving that you can still live life with a stoma and a cancer diagnosis.